our whole life, we've been pounded that we learn to stop seeing what we can really see, and we box ourselves into what some structure system says we can or cannot experience, and we block off the interaction of this realm, which would be classified as the mystical, or
Yeah.
the link to something much deeper. Which, so yeah, the idea of meditation, as it was always taught, because I did it for a while too, because I thought you're supposed to, but I realized other than feeling a bit better peacefully, and my mind is a bit clearer when I stop, there's no other real benefit to that. People meditate for 30 years and nothing happens. I think the key is that's an exercise you do for 15 or 20 or 30 minutes, and then you take that into whatever your real exercise. It's like the warm up to what you're doing, which has to include some kind of awareness, either within or without. It's not to make your mind blank. It's to have this mind running, not a very low running mind, so that you have something deeper that can understand and dig through what you experience.
That's a very good point. Hello and welcome to Spiral Up. My name's Campbell and we're back with Howdie Mickoski for another chat, another Rules of the Realm, trying to work out what's going on, where we are, what we are, what's going on, and all that kind of stuff. So welcome, Howdie.
Hey, good to see you, Campbell. It's been a while.
It has.
For both of us. I moved and you moved, and so it's taken a while for us to do the next one, but here we are.
Yep, we got back to it. Yeah, we've both been moving around. Lots of people have been moving. And another thing that I've noticed is a lot of people are talking about they've been getting rid of a lot of stuff. And I don't know if you did it, but definitely when I moved, we just threw away and gave away so much stuff. And I've heard other people, so it is like a bit, I think that's one thing that's happening at the moment is people are starting to shed, maybe, cleanse. It's almost like a detachment from the system, isn't it? Like people are trying to sort of get rid of the stuff, the possessions, that possess us.
Again, I guess there's a feeling, when life is smooth and everything is wonderful, like the 1980s, then just keep collecting stuff. Everything's fine. But when all of a sudden the things are being presented like, we don't know if it's going to be fine, next week might be real bad, it's only natural to lighten your stuff, that if you have to be active and move or do anything. So I think it's just a reaction to the world. The more unknown the world situation is being presented, the more likely you want to be mobile.
Yeah. And it's almost like a reflection as well. People are like, done with the system and what it's offering me. I'm not that interested anymore. I sort of rather focus on other things. And as we were talking about before, that when people decide to not focus on the system tends to tap you on the shoulder and go, hang on, I want you to focus over here. I want you to focus, is that a rule of the realm, that the system, the matrix, whatever you want to call it, is always or will always try and get your attention, try and get your focus?
I would say, well, of course, I would say that's a big part of what this whole realm is. It's an attention grabbing device, right? That as long as, and you can't you can't just say, oh, I'm going to just close my eyes and shut the world out and never pay attention to it, because nothing will happen, right? So there's this interactive thing that's constantly going on between the thing I think of as me and the things I think of as not me. So we've got that first challenge, right? Is the work on what we call inner work, going inside what I classify as me, as this separate thing. And then there's all the rest, which is not me. But all the rest that's not me tends to be an almost like playing with us individually and collectively to gain more attention on it than it really needs and deserves.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess, we could look at, what is it, theory maybe, that we're creators, that we create things with our thoughts. I mean, it's, if you look into it, I think it's fairly proven that we do create our own circumstances at least. And so if that's how reality is created, everything created in our minds first as a thought, is this how they are creating reality? Like that, is that what it is? Is that why they always want our attention? So that we are creating their reality rather than ours? Because of course, if we create our own, those that want to be empowered, that they lose that, right? And they become insignificant.
I think it's twofold. I mean, if you think of this as a hologram always needs two laser points to make
Yeah.
the object appear, right? So when somebody says it's all coming from me, that's only one laser. If it's all coming from reality, it's a combination of two. So there's what we are sending out, but there's also reality in general is sending out a wave as well, and there's a meeting point. So even to try to control, to say I'm going to control my reality completely in my head, you're still only able to be able to control totally 50% of it, because 50% of what's coming has to be, in holographic terms, coming from a second source.
Yeah.
And was it Swedenborg or somebody was talking about, there's a famous quote from a philosopher that talks about the world is made by the interconnection of two waves. So one wave is sort of from the matrix, one wave is from us individually and collectively. It's like these two waves hitting, and there's reality. So
Right.
I think we always have to keep that in mind, that we're always dealing with one wave that's coming to us and one wave that's going from us.
Yeah, no, that's good. I haven't heard it explained that way before, because I mean that would definitely explain why, people who do sit down and meditate and visualize all day, they don't create the reality they want. It doesn't work that way. We know this, even though they love to sell us all the books and seminars telling us that it does. It clearly doesn't. We've got to interact with whatever's coming back at us, don't we? That gets back, makes me think of the whole Vesica Pisces, isn't it? It's the two fields interacting, and it's where they interact that life appears, that creation is, that we exist, I guess. So,
right.
So, yeah, it's maybe we're looking at this all wrong. Then
that changes the way you do it. Then,
yeah, exactly.
Right? That'll change your whole perspective of manifestation, control of reality, when you realize you're having an impact on some of it, but not all of it. And then you have to start determining, well, why does reality behave the way it does if I can't personally control it? Because normally, if someone says, I need to control reality, it's because reality's wrong and I need to fix it. Now, I think we would all agree reality is insane. And of course, the last few years, it's getting more insane. But that doesn't mean it's wrong. And it doesn't mean it needs to be fixed, because we still don't understand fully what reality is. So its whole creation might be, like you say, it's designed to be an insane creating device so that we are focused on it continually. If that's true, then it's running perfectly. That's why our conversations are so important, because the more you could ever understand this external reality, you get much more clear on what to do with it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think I just had a thought. I think our last conversation, did we talk about the Mandela Effect movie? Did we? And we were talking about how he got reality.
We might have, yeah.
Yeah, and how he was getting. It was basically that he had a knowing, I guess. It wasn't a belief or anything, but he had a reality, a memory of something real that reality couldn't fix, and in the end it had to change to suit his view of reality. So is that part of it too? Like, instead of us saying, well, we're the creators and we create everything and blah blah blah, do we have to somehow act as a catalyst, right, to get reality to react in the way that we want it to, to look at it from a different way? Like, instead of us manifesting, we're actually getting it to react to us, right?
Well, one of the challenges, of course, of this idea is why do I need to fix or change or alter reality anyway?
Mm,
Like just because I don't like something and I want it differently, that's actually an egoic action,
yeah,
right? Um, Maybe it's that old I need to get the homeless person off the street, but you don't know the whole story of the
yeah.
homeless person's existence, and perhaps that's exactly for some reason in their bizarre story, they need that right now. And you would be getting, there was a, how did it go? There was a Castaneda, something in a Castaneda novel. There was a caterpillar trying to cross a road, and Castaneda was going to pick up the caterpillar and move it to the tree it was going to. And Don Juan stopped him and said, "What are you doing?" So, well, the caterpillar might have a tough time. It wants to get to the tree, and said, "You don't know the story of this caterpillar. Maybe it needs the walk to the tree in order to toughen itself up. It's going to have to fight through certain things. It's going to take a giant leap in its own power by making this journey. And by you stepping in and doing that, you're taking away it's the very thing it needs for its next step in its evolution. Leave things alone." And so and this breaks in the face of this
Mm,
presentation we've had for years and years and years and years of you need to fix, control, be in charge of everything, as opposed to how if reality is just a dream, if it's just a manifested thing, then what we're making is prop changes in the show. And yeah, I'd like to have certain things like, that are, there's certain things I wouldn't want in my life and certain things I do want in my life, but I've been learning more and more and more to begin to become more accepting of, if it happens, great. If it doesn't happen, that's fine too. I'm not really in control of the show. I'm more just an observer of the show, and that I'm thankful for the things that come that are in line with what I want, and try to find gratitude too for the things I don't want.
mm. Yeah, I mean, I suppose when you think about it, you could look at the Matrix, as and reality, life, whatever, as like it's an experience machine, right? It's throwing out experiences for us. So if we start to control that, then yeah, maybe, especially if this is some kind of not pre-recorded, but some kind of scripted reality where we've made a decision that we want to learn something or whatever, that kind of narrative. Well, yeah, like you say, if we're changing reality, then we're not going to learn the lessons that we should we? Are we? So, I mean, it's very interesting because when you go back to all the sort of tribal, in inverted commas, sort of rate people, that they're much more like that, aren't they? They're much more accepting of experience, and whatever happens, happens, and it's a journey rather than trying to. And I suppose when it's fighting reality, isn't it? Really, when we're saying no, we don't like what you've given us, give us something else. So do we want to do that?
Like I know Richard Rose used to talk about a lot this idea of you can actually change reality completely, right? Mountains can be moved. You can do, because you are the creator in one sense. You can change everything. The thing is once you get to the point where you do get that power, you realize you're not interested in changing very much at all. And for him, there would be stories every once in a while. It's like little things would occur around him because they seem to need to happen. um, there's one story that was told. They were trying to paint this fence or build this fence or something, and it had to be done for some reason that particular day. I can't remember why, but it had to be done. And it was raining really, really hard. And so they couldn't do it at all. And so the guys said, "Well, what do we do if we can't get this done today?" Something to do with the neighbor and whatever, right? And Rose said, "I guess I'm just going to stop the rain so we get this done." And then, like, all of a sudden, it just stopped raining. And they went out and they worked really, really quickly. And as soon as they finished, the rain started again. And they were all like, "How did you do that?" And he's just like, "Things can happen when you need it to happen. Just don't worry about it," kind of thing, and just left. So it's this interesting dynamic of, yes, we do have this unbelievable power, but it seems like the more we get it seems that the message is the more we get the power, also the more we realize we want to leave out that things are the way they're supposed to be, and we don't need to interfere as much as we think.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, that's the dichotomy, isn't it? Is Yeah, the more I guess the more you understand you can change reality, the more power you've got. Yeah, like you say, you see that it's actually there for a reason. And I guess if the more you see yourself as a creator, then I guess the more you realize that you've already created this, right?
Yeah.
So we don't need
Right. It's
to go on
something
that.
about
Yeah.
it's so weird. It's insane, but for some reason, something at a not me personally, like not you, but something that's the realer us
Yeah.
has created this in a particular way for a particular reason. And maybe that reason is, insane. Maybe it is Rex Monday, it is some sort of, devilish character that created it, but that doesn't mean the creation is wrong. It just means we're seeing it wrong then, and we are going back to the original idea. Maybe we are then trapping ourselves in something that we really shouldn't be trapped in. And instead of trying to fix it, we just need to say, this is not a reality I really want to be in, and I will accept it and understand it and use it, but I'm going to step away from it as well. Because the more we try to control it, the more you're going into it, the more you're grasping to it, as opposed to that more detachment of I'm going to be the observer of it and just respond as how it goes. It's this total change of seeing.
It's like detachment, isn't it? Being detached from, people talk about being detached from things, but it's detaching not from reality, but I guess from what consequence, things like this, reactions. Because in the end, that's all that's the lesson, isn't it? Really, is how we're going to react. That's really the only thing that we do down here. How are you going to react to this, that, the other, and that's how we learn and grow. So if we're down here and we're changing what we're receiving and interacting with, then what we react doesn't actually mean anything, does it? In the bigger picture, because it's the wrong information.
That's an interesting way of presenting it. Yeah, this concept of really we're reaction machines, and this reality is presenting things for us to react to. Things that are horrible, things that are wonderful, things that are neutral, things that are interesting, not interesting, and we are just almost like an experiment, right? Like throw this into the mix and let's see what kind of reactions we get. And that takes us to that very strange idea that's been coming up more and more and more. We've talked about before is how many people are really people? How many are real reaction machines, and how many are almost like robots that are just here to create the experiences we react to? Uh, that also changes the landscape of your head as you contemplate that.
Yeah. Well, that's almost that's group mentality, isn't it? Which is a big sort of swaying of our reactions. So it's almost like a fail safe. Like, are you sure that's your reaction, or are you just going to go with the crowd kind of thing? Is that because that's all these other people are. They all say the same thing, believe the same thing, dress the same way, wear the same things on their face. So are they even real? But are they just some? Because maybe we're here to, our reactions are supposed to alter the experience, right? It's probably not supposed to be a straight line. We're supposed to interact with the program that's supposed to be running. And so if we're doing that, then they're like a fail safe to sort of push us in different directions and make sure that things keep getting changed, I guess, because you've always, like you said, you've got to have that polarity, right? So it's like, if we believe that everyone, should be wearing stuff on their face, then we'd probably be running into people that were reacting in a different way. And we'd be like, oh my gosh, no, everyone should be doing this, because we can only see reality from our point of view, but there's always an equal and opposite point of view, right? There has to be.
Yeah, and then there's a comment you kind of were alluding to there, this idea of, okay, we're dealing with reality as it is right now, but we're also not sure this is the reality as it was set up. So we also maybe have this idea, this concept that comes up where there was an original dream experience or an original reality that somehow was hijacked by other forces, other consciousnesses, and has altered it to something else. So we also could have this internal just almost like an instinctual thing of the reality we're experiencing is somehow not genuine to what's supposed to be here, that we can sense there is a different reality that's supposed to be here, or a different reality that is reachable, but we are constantly interacting with this other one that we know on some level is false. So that could be this urge where we're always feeling, I need to fix, I need to change, I need to alter, I need to alter what's out there, because on some level we know it's not the right reality. But maybe we help understand it. So let's pretend that's true, is we're not trying to fix then this reality because it's not fixable. We're trying to instead somehow push the other reality forward, or just or remove the overlay, this veil of Isis away from what the real reality is supposed to be. And again, that would be a totally different, what would you call it? A totally different set of ways of behaving, if you're not trying to fix the veil, but you're trying to lift it, to just let it would be two different things. And so it's also, it could be the more the more we've been told to fix and alter and control reality, we're keeping it in place, as opposed to saying, no, there's something else that's there, it's behind it. You have to do the opposite, open the curtains, see what's really there.
Yeah. Well, when you think about it, everything about, manifestation and, all that kind of stuff, and self-help kind of genre, it's all taught to us, right? It's an industry. And it is a different way of looking at it than what we find in the old texts and in the more sort of theosophical, writings and that, isn't it? That they're much more about being, not we're human beings, right? Not human doings. So that's the thing, is all this taught to us so that we're constantly trying to change things, which for one puts our focus on it and holds that reality in place. But two, that makes us change reality, right? From what it should be. So that's literally, we're creating this skewed reality, but we're being prompted to, but by, this is how they're doing it. They're just prompting, oh yeah, do this, you want this, but yeah, so instead of like saying that sucks, if we just ignore it, and I guess spend more time looking at the, what we know is the real reality, which I guess is nature, right? And sort of time away from the real, from the imposed reality, then we're going to start building that as our experience rather than trying to change things. That's very interesting.
Yeah, it's interesting, this idea that maybe we are creating reality, but we don't want to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
We're creating a downloaded version of reality that's not the one we want. And I think we're all getting glimpses in the course of our life of this other reality, right? This idea, this sort of mirror reality that's here, that sort of bleeds in enough times that we know there's something more, but we don't know what it is. We don't know how to reach it. We're trying to get back to it. We know it sort of exists. I had an experience once of, right in the early stages of my learning the ancient Egyptian stuff I was learning, and I kind of felt I need a sign to know I'm going in the right direction, or that I'm actually learning something. And I was sitting in a park. This was in Calgary, and an ibis bird all of a sudden one night flies in and sits on a rock right in front of me. Right, the birds of Thoth Tehute in Egypt. There are no ibis birds in Canada. They just, sitting there on the rock. Yeah. And I knew enough. Okay, don't think, just look at it. It's looking at me. We just looked at each other for a long period of time. But once I started thinking about it, well, how does an ibis bird get here? It just flies away. And so there was also somehow this recognition that when this other reality, or this realer reality, whatever you want to call it, pushes in, as soon as we think about it, as soon as our mind starts running, we shut it off. So somehow, and I don't know exactly, there's the reality we are in that we experience daily is somehow connected to mind. The more our mind is not really operating, the possibility of touching this other reality is great. And maybe that's why our reality is structured to keep us thinking 24 hours a day.
Yeah. It is taking information, and all that information is, this is what reality is pretty much, isn't it? It starts at schooling and all this kind of stuff. And I guess even things like meditation and that's the way it's taught, is it's really to sit in a room, right, with your eyes closed and empty your mind, which is definitely beneficial, but that's a different thing to sitting on a rock and looking at a bird, right, or walking in nature, or whatever it is. That's because they're more interactive, and that way we're experiencing the real reality. And I mean, it's interesting when you said that. I was thinking, because Canada, we have all these stories of the Arctic being tropical not that long ago. So maybe it is right, but we've been taught since we're kids that no, it's frozen.
Yeah.
So are we even creating that? And so you literally saw what was actually there, right? Because there are ibises there, but we can't see them, because in our mind, every time we look out, we have to think, if we're up there, well, there's snow, it's cold, they can't live here. So it doesn't, it's like the whole thing, if you don't have a reference point in your mind for it, it can't really exist for you.
Right. Yeah, it was another one I saw once. A woman was with her young daughter, and the daughter was talking about, oh, look, and she was it's a particular kind of bird, and the mother saying, no, that's a blue jay, honey. And no, she's like 5 or 6, so old enough to, have learned a little bit. She's like, no, look, it's a whatever. And she's describing one bird, and the mother is sort of pounding her. No, blue jay, blue jay, blue jay. And you're sort of like, is this kind of how we've been focused our whole life? We've been pounded that we learn to stop seeing what we can really see, and we box ourselves into what some structure system says we can or cannot experience, and we block off the interaction of this realm, which would be classified as the mystical, or the link to something much deeper, which the idea of meditation, as it was always taught, because I did it for a while too, because I thought you're supposed to, but I realized, other than feeling a bit better peacefully and my mind is a bit clearer when I stop, there's no other real benefit to that. People meditate for 30 years and nothing happens. I think the key is, that's an exercise you do for 15 or 20 or 30 minutes, and then you take that into whatever your real exercise. It's like the warm-up to what you're doing, which has to include some kind of awareness, either within or without. It's not to make your mind blank. It's to have this mind running, not a very low running mind, so that you have something deeper that can understand and dig through what you experience.
That's a very good point. We spend all this time meditating, but what do we do with that state? Nothing. We go, oh, well, that's my 20 minutes, or that's my hour. Woo-hoo. But like we were just saying, if when you start thinking, that's when you alter reality, right? You change it back to this warped reality. Then what does meditation do, right? It stops the thoughts. It slows your mind down. So if that's used as a warm-up, if you meditate for 15 minutes and then go walking in the woods, you're going to be in more of a state to see, reality, if we want to call it that, the real reality, right? Because you're not going to be triggered and going, no, that's not true, that's not right, and overlaying it with our own, preconceived conceptions. So that's very,
because if somebody takes it and then someone just does the normal, does the meditation, and then then they're doing it to feel better. That's usually how it's presented, to feel better. You don't feel good, so this will make you feel better. And then they do feel better, and they don't realize how fast their mind starts operating again. They still feel pretty good, but they're still thinking about this, thinking about that, focused on this. I got to cook dinner. I got to, it's lower, so they feel better, but they don't realize they're just back. They're still back playing with reality, as opposed to, like you said, how can you keep that just. Like for me, the best meditations were just walking and following that idea of just keeping your eyes totally focused ahead of you, because eventually your mind just turns off automatically. I don't have to try to do it. Eventually the mind gets so loaded with information, because I'm not taking time to think about it. Look here, like you literally are just focus, like your head is just still, and you're just moving, and this information is just boom, 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 it's just bombarding your brain, and it shorts out. And then once the brain shorts out, once it's not functioning on its own, all of a sudden reality started just altering,
Right.
just
Wow.
changed.
So I
So
want,
it was through these experiences I began to see that the idea, the concept of how meditation is normally taught is valid. It's just the methods and what to do with it
yeah.
are more of a trick as opposed to what you can really do with that information.
Oh, yeah. It's almost like it was set up to make money, right? And not really give us the information that we're after. You know, it's like everything they give you sort of
Mhm.
80% of, right, you know, I'm getting to this state, but then, because like you say, like everyone, you know, meditation, oh God, 60s, I guess, but in the 70s and 80s, it was huge. But what changed? What happened?
Yeah.
You know, nothing, right? So, I think that's huge. I think, I don't know if I've actually heard that before, that meditation should be, you know, it's a warm up, is to get us into a state to then go and do things and have experiences. And when you mentioned that bird, there's a saying, I think it's Hindi or Sanskrit, an old saying, about, there was a boy and he was looking at, you know, this amazing creature, and it was flying and it had feathers and a beak and everything, and he was all wondrous. And then his father came up and he said, you know, it's like the story you just told, that's a blah blah blah, you know, that's a parrot, or that's a whatever kind of bird. And once the boy was told that, he could never see the wonder again. Every time he looked at it, he saw a parrot. You know, so because the other thing, when I
Mm.
was thinking when you were saying that, is think about school, kids in school, right? Literally, there's picture books. This is a parrot. This is a bear. This is the, you know, it's like, this is reality. It's the building blocks that they're building up in our mind of, this is a reality that you're going to see and you're going to live in. And when we revert to that, that's what we see and live in. So I guess that's the trick, is to get into like a meditative state, if you want to say that, but then go out and live that way, to experience when we're in that state, so that we're not judging reality.
I think the whole meditation thing got mixed up a long time ago, where people, young students, were studying the master, and the master was sitting or be sitting quietly a lot. The master was seemed to have no thought. The master was very, had a clear mind. So they thought, if I want to be a master, I should get a clear mind too. And they had this whole, it started as an idea of imitating what you wanted to be, as opposed to saying, how did this person get to that place where they had the no mind? What, and if you, I'm sure if you went into and asked, and they really asked the questions, you said, oh, I had to do this, I had to do this, I had to dig through this, I had to experience that, I had to, he's not going to say, I sat around quietly under a tree all day, I did this,
Exactly.
Buddha, I did this, I had to do this, I had to do this, I was tempted by that, and so it became this idea of, if I imitate it, I'll become it, as opposed to, why don't I become it? And then it'll happen automatically. And I think that's where the initial stage began to be mixed up. And of
Mm.
course, the easier something is to present to others, the easier you can sell it. And once you can start to sell it, you've got an organization. Once you've got an organization, you've got a business. And all of a sudden, voila, the
Yeah,
master's real work is long forgotten.
yeah, yeah. Well, that's the thing. No one changes by sitting there with an empty mind. I mean, it's, when you think about it, it's a bit of a scam, isn't it? You know, because um, you know, some people, it gets like a competition. Well, I meditated for 3 hours today. You know, oh, I did 4 hours. And there's even that quote that says, what does it say? I had, 12 hours of things to do in 8 hours, so I decided I had to meditate for 4 hours instead of one, because the whole concept that if you meditate longer, that you then get other things done quicker. But if you're spending 4 hours getting ready, getting into that state, that's really 4 hours of wasted time, isn't it? You should, the repetition should be so you can get into that state quicker. And it's like you said before, and I had the same experience. I used to meditate a lot, and I sort of got up to not doing an hour, right? But when you do an hour, you just you start thinking, what am I doing? It's a long time. And so at a certain point, I just felt like I didn't need to do it anymore. But maybe that's what meditation is for. Maybe that's what it is you learn it so that then you can just instantly get into that state of mind while you're in the world, right? Experiencing things. It's more about getting your mind into a certain state than sitting there on a cushion and, you know, looking the part. So we're taught it's the be all and end all, when it's just, I think it's just something that we need to learn, and then it goes into your subconscious and it's done.
Yeah, I mean, it's valuable. I don't want to say to somebody it's not valuable. It's just the time factor, and then what do you do afterwards? Like,
Do with it.
I know, again, Rose was very clear. He talked as well, because I came to Rose much later in my life after I had done a whole lot of work myself. And so there was a lot of verification. I figured out myself and got after. But for him, he was very clear. Meditation does nothing other than hypnotize yourself mostly. You get yourself in a clear state of mind, he said, for example, to look into your past. Real meditation is examine your traumas, examine the things of your life, examine how you lived and what you did. There's great power in that, because you're unraveling yourself, you're unraveling your mental state, you're unraveling your belief in what your whole life has been. There's power in that. But you need to be in the right focused state. You need to be able to observe and see and be non-judgmental as you view yourself, for example, and view your past. So that quiet time is meant to take you to the next thing, and you bring it into the real practice. If you stop, then yeah, like you say, you get this little bit of something and you're just about ready to go deep, and you come back out, as opposed to you start it and now I'm going to go into the depth of, I'm going to take that into what I really need to do.
Yeah, exactly.
But there's our realm. There's our whole realm of distraction. Our realm gives us something that looks like it's useful, looks like it's taking us somewhere, and we just, the average person follows it and then comes right back out, back into reality, as opposed to, and I can really dig into this. I could take this really deep if I really want to. And that's the big test. Do we want to take our examination deep, or do we just want to stay on the surface?
Yeah, and that's the thing is, you know, using it doesn't have to be, you know, physical and out, you know, walking through the, it can be going deeper mentally, because you've just got to be into that state, don't you? So it's, yeah, I think that it's funny, isn't it? I've just never thought of that meditation is just something we don't use it. Like, we don't do anything with it. We all do it, but we don't do anything with it. And I think that's something we should definitely explore.
That's always presented too, right? It's always presented when you're meditating. Don't do, just be present, be in awareness. That's the whole. And it's like, yes, that's correct, because you aren't supposed to be doing, it's supposed to be putting you into this more natural state. I mean, really, if someone meditates for 25 minutes and they do it really well, you could say they're in a more natural state than the normal mind-controlled, centered focus. And then it's like, okay, but now what? Now what do? You've moved to a more real part of your being. Now you've got an opportunity for step two. What is step two? And it's almost like you need to know what step two is before you do step one. Where is it you want to take it, so you know why you're doing it.
So you've got intention involved there as well.
Right. So it's not just I'm sitting to meditate because I'm supposed to, it's on my clock. It's, it's in my book, 7 p.m. It's like, I'm meditating now because I'm doing this next. And so now you already have an intention in the meditation. You're building up the power of the thing you're going to take it towards while you're doing it. And then I don't have to do anything in the meditation. I can really do what it's asking me to do, which is just allow you might say, my normal waking mind to slow down. And you can then you're not fighting it then, because it's really designed to what's next on my list. That's really what it's for. And then I think what was normally called meditation, stilling the mind, gains a great power, because your intention is pulling it into the next thing.
Yeah, I agree. And then imagine if you could, write down your reflections about that experience at the end of it, then the whole experience becomes an intentional thing. And then you can look back on it. You've got reference points. And I mean, because this is one of the things, right? We not many people live an intentional life or do things intentionally. It's always hurried. It's always fast. I don't want to do this. I don't want. So just the act of like breaking something an experience into that, I'm going to whatever, right? I'm going to take the dog to the park for a walk. If that, it becomes a 3-step process. First, I'm going to get ready, and I'm going to do the experience the best I can. Make it if I'm going to do it, may as well do it the best we can do it, right? And then reflect on it so that then next time you can do it better again. And is that what creation is? Is that maybe what creation was meant to be? Is not creating things, but creating the state. We can create the state that we're in, can't we?
Oh,
and then that
that idea, do it the best you can, or be as clear. That's this idea of using death as an advisor. This idea of knowing that I don't know when I'm really going to die, and we like to push death way in advance, and it could be in an hour. This could be the last hour you've got. So why don't you do your last hour potentially with extreme awareness and extreme focus and extreme everything? And if you're doing that all the time, you're preparing what you do, you're living in this sort of ultra fine experience of your moment, where you're not, because if you have the last hour, you're not trying to fix it. You're trying to experience it as best you, or understand something in that experience. And then, like you say, the experience ends, you're not dead, you're still here. Now you can reflect on it in a really deep way, gain a much deep, rather than a robotic move through whatever that experience was. And I can say I don't do that now. I've lost some of that. All these things we talk about are messages for all of us, including me right now. This reminder that there were times in my life where I was much more like that, and the experiences from anything, just cooking dinner, had a different feeling to it. When you cook dinner with this a little bit more awareness to it, because not because I'm trying to be in the now, but because I don't know when I might die. So why not really experience this? It gains this secondary level of something that's intangible.
And I think when we do that and reflect on it, that means that the next time we do it, we're going to do it differently. It's not going to be a repeat. It's not going to be robotic. And, of course, we know if we do the same thing, we get the same results. So that in itself is creating reality, is it not? We're making sure that each time we have the experience, we're learning it's different, and we can progress rather than going around in circles. We can spiral.
I would say that's another big one, and we're talking about uncovering or removing this reality, assuming it's a false reality we normally deal with. Is the more, what's the word I'm looking for? The more habitual we are, right? The more we act as a habit, that we're just doing the same thing over and over again, like you say. Reality is going to just keep mirroring us exactly the same thing. The more spontaneous we get, or the more different we get, or the more we do something completely unique, reality will have to respond to that. Reality is expecting A, and we give it B. When someone puts their hand out to shake your hand and you go and shake their hand, everything is normal. If someone goes out to shake your hand and you go like this, the other person, it's like the other person's just going to go, so what? Like they you'll notice it, because I've done that. If you things like that, they literally stop. They're not thinking. They literally their whole thought process has stopped because you have done something so abnormal. They don't know what to do, and they're trying to focus on and so if you think about that, if you do that just in general to reality is going to do this
the same thing.
Okay, and there's going to be for a split second, there's going to be this break, because reality can't function normally. And in that break, you might see something surprising.
Yeah, nice. Yeah. Creating that again, the gap, right? The two different fields, coming against each other. Yeah, right.
Right.
Yeah.
I used to do it alone. When I would walk down the street, sometimes I would just stop unexpectedly for no reason, jump, just walk, and then just jump and then keep walking, or spin around and keep walking. And it's so simple, it's easy to do, but it does, as I did that, I would notice my walk was different. Something was either I was a little more aware, or just this sense of things were not normal. because I was not behaving in the way reality was expecting me to behave. And so it's like there were doorways that were there, even though I wasn't noticing them. Doorways would be like flashing for a second and then they go away again. So I think that's another part of learning to deal with the rules of the realm, is that the realm expects us to be very robotic. It's not just the robots that are robots. We, in a sense, are very robotic because we behave very similarly. So the more we can behave in a spontaneous, odd way, the more reality is going to have to get shaken a little because it doesn't know what to do with us.
Yeah, it's gonna ultimately have to give us more options, isn't it, to deal with this? And this is the thing, you know, if we run around doing the same thing, like I said, we get the same results. So obviously, if we do different things, we get a different result. I've got a friend who says never be on time, you know, always be late or always be early, because when you're on time, you know, he says when you're on time, you know,
or be on time too.
There, but
any of the be any of the three, just not the same. Don't always be early. Don't always be late. Don't always be on time. Because that's another one. It's not just you become unknown to reality, you become unknown to yourself, because then you actually don't know, am I going to be early? Am I going to be late? Or am I going to be on time? You yourself become this unknown creature. So it's not just reality you want to become unknown to, you want to become unknown to yourself, because then you open your own possibilities of anything becomes possible then.
Yeah, because I mean, routine and all this stuff, it's really just, I mean, you could look at it as judging reality, couldn't you? You know, it has to be this way. I have to be there at this time. This has to be there. I have to wear this. You know, people who lay all their clothes out and everything, I have to be wearing this. You know, I have to have this aftershave on and this and this. And that's really, I mean, that is programming reality, isn't it? But that's programming it to what we've been taught. And so that we always get the same thing. And so everyone's doing the same as everyone else. Everyone's getting the same experience. So yeah, I think spontaneity but this is the thing, you can't, it's like you said, you can't say, well, I'm always going to be early then, because then that's another habit, right? You've got to be spontaneous to yourself, non-judgmental in everything. And this is a thing, because, you know, it's a big thing in the Christian Bible, at least, you know, don't judge. And I've always thought that's, you know, I don't know about that. They obviously don't mean what we're told it means when they say don't judge, because you should judge someone who's running at you with a hammer in their hand saying, I'm going to smack you in the head. You really should judge him as someone you want to get away from. But this is what it's saying, is don't judge reality, right? Because when you do, you fix it in place.
Right. Yeah. Like, for example, have you ever gone to like a large gathering, a store, or like a party, and worn your shirt backwards?
No.
Just to see what will happen.
It'd be good.
Will people look at you differently? Will anyone say anything? Would somebody say, like, you know? I remember I went to a doctor's office sometime for something, and I never, even right now, I'm wearing two socks that are completely different. I just take two socks. I don't have to take the matching sock. They're just whatever two socks are there, I put them on. And he looked at me and said, you know, you have two different socks on. Yeah. Well, why do you have two different socks on? I was like, well, what difference does it make? They're socks. They keep my feet warm. Why do they have to be the same? And he just kind of, why do they have to be the same? It was just this. So it's interesting to see the reaction, just doing little things like that, to see how will other people respond to you not behaving in the prescribed manner of expectation.
And that also goes back to that whole NPC thing. Are they NPCs saying, hang on, you're not supposed to be changing reality, dude. You're supposed to be sitting here doing this, you know, the sort of the guards, right? Keeping us, the crowd, keeping us in line. So, but then of course, if we can be in a space where we're not judging that, then but they've lost control, haven't they? Just wear different socks, you know. Sit on the floor, go into an office and sit down.
Or of course, more importantly, we're opening our own possibility. And that's really what it's about. Yeah, it's really about opening our own possibilities. It's really about recognizing that if we go way back to the start of, we have the possibility of creating reality. We have the possibility of creating our experience. We have the possibility of having a completely different realm than we do experience. But the more we behave and think in the exact same box day after day, moment after moment, nothing's going to change. So it's another example. People can try all they want to force reality to change or create an experience, but if their whole life is lived as a robot, then there's no possibility or energy for the change to happen. It first has to be, you've got to make changes to your own behavior and your own way of being so that you become unknown to yourself. Only then could reality become unknown and changeable. You have to be changeable first for reality to change.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's a reflection of us, isn't it? So yeah, that's the thing. Wow, that was really good. So everyone out there watching, your challenge is to do something spontaneous this week and let us know how it went. And also, if you meditate, do something with it and let us know how it went. Because I mean, I think that's the biggest thing we've hit in this chat. Is, you know, this whole thing of meditation is the thing in itself when it's probably not. It's just, you know, and that's us creating a state so we can get in, and through that we can then interact with real reality, right? With what's supposed to be there, rather than constantly having these thoughts, because those thoughts that people can't get rid of, that's reality, isn't it? That's us going, hang on, no, that's wrong, it's got to be like this, that's wrong, it's got to be like this, it's got to be like this. Why is it like that? It's got to be like this. So I think that's a big one. So there we go. All right. Well, I think we'll leave it there. That was. Don't know how we do it. Every time we tend to hit some really good points, don't we?
Yeah. For people out there, we have no idea what we're going to talk about when we start. We get together a few minutes before, and what should we talk about? You know,
Yeah,
and we kind of we find one thing. Okay, let's start with this. You know, and then it just flows. But for some reason, we have such a really good interaction together that something is generated. The Vesica pieces really works.
yeah.
My circle goes to you, your circle comes to me, and somewhere in that middle, we get this video.
Yeah, I agree. And it's like you said, you know, we're not, it's not pre-planned, right? So we're literally out there, we're being spontaneous because we don't know what's coming. Like we're just reacting to each other. So and that's I think is how we're getting to where we're getting, is we're letting, you know, the real reality in, right? So we're doing it as we're speaking it. So there you go. Awesome. All right. Well, of course, we'll leave all Howdie's details below. Go check out his channels as well on YouTube and Free Voice. Is that right? And we'll be back.
Yep.
We should be right now. We should be back to our 2-week schedule. So make sure you give us a like, share this around as well, guys, if you find it interesting. And we'll be back in a couple of weeks to continue the conversation. So we'll talk to you then. Have an awesome day. Bye for now.